I'm not talking about that.
Emotionally, right? Is it emotionally hard?
Yes, the hardest.
Difficult. The hardest part, I would say, is that since we spent a lot of time on a small yacht and we bought it without the experience we have now, so now when I help people buy a yacht, I tell them in advance what not to do. And like that, if we had made the right decision back then and bought a bigger yacht, our life would have been completely different. That is, now when I help people buy a yacht, I tell them in advance what they shouldn't do. And if we had made the right decision back then and bought a bigger yacht, our life would have been completely different. And since we spent a lot of time on a 10-meter yacht, which was very cramped with 2 kids, it was really hard for us to focus on earning money and to somehow organize our financial stability. So we went out to sea, roughly speaking, with only 10 euros, and we headed into the ocean back then. And all the time we were earning while traveling, so we tried absolutely every method. And YouTube and Patreon and some online projects, all of this can be done. It definitely requires a lot of effort, but it's all possible. There you go. And that was probably the hardest part, because if there was just a little more space, right, for each person to have their own space, then you could work, engage better and faster, and achieve the results you want. What I really like is that the ocean helped me become my true self. Because when I lived in Moscow, I had this feeling of inner discomfort. Like I was doing something wrong, like I wasn't the right person, that maybe these weren't my dreams. When you live in the city, you're bombarded with a lot of advertising, in other people's desires, in other people's plans, and it's really hard to filter that out. And when you go out into the ocean, it creates a big digital detox, and after a while, all that excess, like chaff, just falls away on its own. And you realize what kind of person you really are, like what's yours. And this is my goal, and this isn't, and I actually want this. And you get to know yourself all over again. It all happens in such a natural way. Of course, it can be a bit difficult at times because getting to know yourself can be scary for many people. And we bury a lot of things inside ourselves to avoid facing that. So this journey of self-discovery in the ocean helps you get to know your true self. And we bury a lot of things inside ourselves to avoid discovering them. So this journey of getting to know yourself in the ocean helps. You discover your true self. I believe that for every person, this should be one of the most important goals in life. It's about getting to know yourself and unlocking your full potential. And yachting helps achieve that like nothing else. Because it's such an ideal retreat, a free one that helps you discover yourself, develop yourself, and become the best version of yourself.
Awesome. I must emphasize once again that this will indeed be the most unpleasant and final question. Don't you want to go back to land?
I don't want to go back to land. You know, sometimes I do want to. I can tell you why. Sometimes I really want to take a bath. I really love big baths, but of course I don't have that. And every X-Man knows that when we come back from the sea, the time a person spends in the shower for the first time is measured in hours. Because you crave hot water, that sense of cleanliness. And sometimes you crave a bit more comfort. That's really great. And from time to time we go ashore. Sometimes we spend a couple of months there in different places. I think it's really great. We went to a different atmosphere, to a different place. It really switches things up a lot because we live, for example, on a yacht. And you can live without a refrigerator for a very long time. It's not just that you can't, but a yacht in general is a limited environment where there's no endless supply. And the resources of water are limited. Electricity is also limited because solar panels can't meet all your electricity needs. And it turns out that a person learns to live economically and treat all resources, including natural ones, economically. And when we arrive at the apartment, the people to whom we pay, for example, the minimum rent, they are surprised. Oh my God, how did you achieve such low consumption? It's almost like we should be paying for electricity, but what are you doing? And we explain that we just don't use it. We just have a rational approach to everything in fresh water with electricity. So when we wash the dishes, we just don't let the water run from the tap. We turn it off because, well, it's fresh water. And here's an interesting note about the refrigerator. On the yacht, we eat fresh food. We don't have freezers. Storing old fish is pointless. The food is fresh. And we, in principle, don't have freezers. There's no point in storing these centuries-old stocks of some 50-year-old fish, only to later find out, oh my God, what is this, and throw it away. And it turns out that the food is always quite fresh and it is at room temperature. And when we, for example, take fruits out of the fridge when we're on land and start eating them, I realize that I don't really taste them. The flavor feels very distant and barely noticeable. So we first wait for the fruits or vegetables to reach room temperature and then we eat them, and they really are delicious. So the flavor is kind of distant and barely noticeable, and we first wait until the fruits or vegetables become like room temperature and then we eat them, and they are really tasty. So that was an interesting note about taste receptors and how much they change. Well, I would even say that, do you want me to tell you a story you already know? When we were sailing from the Canadian coast across the ocean towards the Mediterranean Sea, it was a week-long journey. And at sea, hallucinations can happen. It happens to everyone. Auditory or hearing hallucinations. At sea, only water, sails, and wind surround you. There are a lot of noises, a lot of people, a lot going on. When you go out to sea, all you have around you is water. And the only sounds are the water, the sails, and the wind. There are no smells, so all the smells are just the ones that are on the yacht. So on the second day, the brain starts to compensate for the lack of all these activities around and adds its own to each person. So for example, I can hear symphony orchestra playing there. Some people hear voices talking. There are some solitary individuals who get really scared because they think they hear people talking somewhere in the cabin of the yacht, and they start running around looking for them. That is, sometimes these are some kind of auditory, visual hallucinations when the waves take on some forms. This is a completely natural process. Don't be scared. Everyone experiences this, and after some time it passes. And after that long journey, when we returned to the continent, to the Mediterranean Sea, we stepped onto land and we plunged from that week-long trip without smells and sounds into city life. My kids and I were so impressed that sound and smell took on a 5-dimensional space for us. That is, there was a large number of flowers, some aromas, some noises, birds, cars, and something else. It hit us, the Niagara Falls, and it was really, really interesting.
Cool. Listen, well, overall, I think we can slowly wrap up our first episode. I hope you enjoyed the second episode and that you'll be there too. Thank you so much for your time. Like and subscribe.